Did you know that a simple blue sticker, the one you've probably seen on your washing machine, maybe your fridge, or even windows, has quietly saved American households literally billions of dollars? It's true. It's that familiar Energy Star label. So today, we're doing a deep dive into the Energy Star program. We're going to explore its incredible impact, why it's suddenly facing this really uncertain future, and what that could actually mean for your energy bills and your choices.
That's exactly right. Our mission here is to really unpack the details of this, long-standing, super effective program. We'll look at the national level uncertainty around it now and talk about the potential ripple effects for you, the consumer, but also for manufacturers and even for the bigger picture of energy efficiency in homes across the country. It's definitely a lot more than just a sticker.
Okay, let's unpack this then. We all recognize that blue Energy Star label, right? It's been a cornerstone of energy efficiency in the U.S. for, over 3 decades now. But beyond just seeing the sticker, what's the core idea? Like, how does it actually work?
Well, Energy Star, it started way back in 1992. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, set it up in partnership with the Department of Energy. And it's basically a voluntary labeling program. The EPA sets these really stringent energy efficiency specifications.
Stringent, okay.
Yeah, across more than 75 product categories. So we're talking everything from your dishwasher, fridge, appliances, to electronics, heating and cooling systems, even entire new homes. Products that meet these high standards, they get to display that familiar blue label.
That blue label is everywhere, you're right. So, okay, how effective has it really been over all these years? We hear about savings, but what's the actual, quantifiable impact? How much are we really talking about?
Oh, the numbers are quite astonishing, actually. Since it started, the program has helped consumers save over $500 billion in energy costs.
Like $500 billion?
$500 billion, yeah. It's a staggering amount. And it's also prevented, get this, 4 billion metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions. So a huge environmental impact, too.
Wow.
And then on a household level, just choosing Energy Star products, on average, can save you around $450 per year on energy bills.
Those numbers are just amazing. And that $350 return on every federal dollar, like Senator Ruben Gallego pointed out, that's almost unheard of for a government program, isn't it? Why do you think this particular initiative has been so uniquely effective, compared to others? We hear about that kind of struggle to show even a basic ROI.
Well, I think what it really highlights is how a relatively small government investment focused on information and voluntary standards can leverage massive private sector innovation and, change consumer behavior. It gives a clear, trusted signal to the market.
Yeah.
It lets consumers like you make informed choices, which then pushes manufacturers to compete on efficiency.
Right. It creates a loop.
Exactly. It becomes this self-reinforcing cycle, and that makes it a surprisingly efficient model for driving, public good compared to just, say, direct subsidies alone. It really speaks to the power of a simple, recognizable standard.
Yeah, and beyond just the money and the environment, one of its biggest achievements, maybe one we don't think about enough, is just how recognized the symbol is. It almost feels like, a default trust signal when you're shopping.
It absolutely does. Research shows roughly 90% of U.S. households recognize the Energy Star symbol.
90%.
Yep. And over 45% intentionally buy these certified products. That makes it the most trusted environmental label in the nation. And that high recognition, it just simplifies these complex purchasing decisions for you, the consumer.
Yeah.
Instead of digging into, all the technical specs, you just look for the star. That trust is, it's invaluable.
And it's not just about individual appliances, right?
Yeah.
It's bigger than just a new fridge. It can be about your whole home setup.
Absolutely. The program expanded. Back in '95, it grew to include residential heating and cooling systems and even new homes. So new Energy Star certified homes, they're typically 10% more efficient than homes just built to code. And on average, they hit about a 20% improvement.
Okay, so real savings there.
Yeah, that can save homeowners around $500 a year on their utility bills. Plus, the program unveils certifications for things like smart thermostats and smart plugs. Those help you cut costs even further by managing energy use better. It's a really comprehensive approach to energy savings, It kind of permeates our whole living environment.
It almost seems counterintuitive then, given all these clear benefits, this massive success. But despite all that, there's now this genuine buzz of concern, real uncertainty about the program's future. This is where the story gets really interesting, kind of unexpected. What's going on? Why is such an effective thing suddenly facing, this kind of risk?
Well, yeah, there's significant national level uncertainty. The EPA announced these, quote, organizational improvements set for May 2025, and these seem to involve phasing out or reorganizing the offices that currently manage the Energy Star program.
Phasing out.
Well, leaks from internal EPA meetings have apparently suggested the program is slated for elimination.
Elimination.
Yeah, so that's obviously raised alarms across, various sectors, and for good reason.
Okay, this claim that the EPA can just unilaterally end a program like this, especially one with such huge impact, it sounds legally, well, murky. What's the basis for the senators arguing it's protected by federal statute? Is this like a clear-cut legal thing, or is there real ambiguity here?
That's a really critical question. And yeah, the move has generated significant pushback precisely because of its legal standing. You mentioned Senator Ruben Gallego. He called it a misguided decision, said it would be counterproductive. But more importantly, 22 senators actually wrote to the EPA. They argue that Energy Star is protected under federal law, specifically the Energy Policy Act of 2005.
Ah, okay, so there's actual legislation.
Exactly. They contend it would be illegal for the administration to just terminate it unilaterally because Congress specifically codified the program into law. So their argument is it's not just some executive decision. There's a law behind it that, well, many believe prevents just arbitrarily shutting it down. So yes, definitely legal ambiguity and strong opposition based on existing law.
Of course, we're hearing different things, right? How is the administration framing these changes? Are they actually saying they want to end it, or is there a different story being told?
Well, the EPA's official statement calls them organizational improvements. They claim these will directly benefit the American people, better advance the agency's core mission, and power the great American comeback. That's the official line.
Organizational improvement.
Right. But critics, like Stephen Nadell, he's the executive director of the American Council for an Energy Efficient Economy, they suggest that if these changes effectively kill the program, well, it would actually be a way to raise energy bills for consumers, undermining the very benefits it was designed for. And what's also really notable is the broad industry support for the program. Over 1,000 companies and organizations. Yeah, including big manufacturers like Carrier and Trane and groups representing about 25% of U.S. housing starts. They've all urged the EPA to keep the program. That really highlights the widespread concern over losing it. It shows it's not just some government thing. It's deeply integrated into the economy, driving innovation.
It is hard to imagine something so, woven into our daily lives just disappearing. If this program were to actually go away, who feels the impact first? How would it hit, the average person or even these larger industries?
Okay, so for you, the consumer, the most immediate direct impact would be losing that recognizable blue label. I mean, I remember years ago, my old washing machine finally died, right? And I just went straight for the Energy Star label on the new one. Almost didn't even think about it.
Yeah, it's a shortcut.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And as Elizabeth Hewitt, she's a professor at Stony Brook University, points out, you'd suddenly have to become a really savvy shopper. Imagine trying to compare these complex specs like SEER ratings, that's seasonal energy efficiency ratio, basically how efficiently your AC cools.
Right, I've seen those numbers.
Yeah, or HSPF, heating seasonal performance factor, the same idea but for heating systems. Or even something that sounds simple, like gallons per load for washing machines. Jay Buchanan, he owns an appliance store in Cleveland. He put it pretty bluntly. Unless they're deep into analytics, they're not going to freaking know.
Huh. Yeah, I can see that.
So this increased complexity, it could very well just deter people from prioritizing energy efficiency when they buy things.
So basically, without the label, your next trip to buy an appliance feels like you need an engineering degree just to figure out which dishwasher won't, drain your bank account every month.
Pretty much. And that leads right to your wallet, right? Without Energy Star guiding your choices, households could lose that average $450 in annual savings.
Ouch.
Which means higher energy bills directly. And then there's the other piece. Rebates and tax credits. Lots of state and local utility rebate programs, plus the federal tax credits like the ones from the Inflation Reduction Act, up to $3,200 a year for energy-efficient home improvements. They rely on Energy Star certification to determine who's eligible. If the label disappears, well, these programs might struggle to figure out which equipment qualifies.
Oh, wow. So you might lose out on those savings programs, too.
Potentially, yeah. It could leave you without access to those really valuable savings.
So it's not just about what you buy, but also what manufacturers are making and how the whole construction and real estate world operates. Sounds like a ripple effect, a disruption that could cascade through the whole market.
Exactly. For manufacturers, that Energy Star label. It's a crucial market differentiator. Losing it could actually diminish competition, maybe slow down investment in developing more efficient technologies. That affects everyone.
Less innovation.
Could be. And for home builders, the real estate sector, it's a significant blow. Over 3,400 firms participate in the Energy Star for New Homes program. Just in 2024, roughly 350,000 newly built homes, that's about 22% of all new U.S. housing starts, were Energy Star certified.
22%. That's a lot of homes.
It is, and builders would lose access to those federal 45L tax credits. That's up to $2,500 per qualifying home, and potentially many utility rebates tied to Energy Star. That could definitely impact housing affordability and just a general push for higher performance homes.
Okay, and stepping back even further, what about the bigger picture? Climate change, the energy grid itself. How does this little blue label connect to something so fundamental? And I guess what systemic vulnerabilities pop up if it's gone?
Well, connecting it to the bigger picture, yeah, a rollback could seriously hinder emissions reductions. It could undermine broader efforts to combat climate change. Plus, Energy Star supports grid resilience. Encouraging energy efficiency helps reduce peak demand, takes strain off the system, makes the whole grid more stable.
Hadn't thought about the grid stability angle.
Yeah, and it also brings up this really important issue called the split incentive problem.
Split incentive.
Yeah, this is where landlords, for example, might choose cheaper, less efficient appliances because they aren't the ones paying the monthly utility bills.
Right. The tenant pays the bill.
Exactly. So the landlord saves money up front, but the tenant gets stuck with significantly higher energy costs down the line.
So, in a way, Energy Star was kind of acting as this silent equalizer, helping to fix a basic market problem for renters. And without it, are we just letting those existing economic inequalities get wider, especially for people who don't have much say over their living situation?
That's precisely the concern, yeah. The program has sort of implicitly provided a level of protection for renters who often don't get to choose the efficiency of the appliances in their homes. Without that clear, standardized signal from Energy Star, the economic incentive for landlords to pick more efficient and often, initially more expensive appliances gets weaker.
Right.
And that leaves tenants bearing the brunt of higher utility bills. So yes, it absolutely risks widening those inequities.
So, okay, where does this leave us? What does this all mean moving forward? Is the program definitely gone, or is there still, a path forward? What's the latest outlook?
Well, the fate of Energy Star is still uncertain. The EPA hasn't directly confirmed a shutdown, hasn't provided a firm timeline, and like one expert said, nothing is done yet.
Okay, so it's not a done deal.
Not yet. Industry associations are actively lobbying Congress, trying to preserve or reauthorize the program. Its benefits are just so widely recognized, across both public and private sectors. There's even some talk that maybe the Department of Energy, which already partners on it, could take over primary administration, ensure it continues in some form.
Interesting possibility.
So yeah, it's definitely not over, and there are a lot of players working to try and secure its future.
Okay, so given all this uncertainty, what stands out to you as the key takeaway? For listeners who still want to make energy-efficient choices, regardless of what happens with the label, what practical steps can people actually take?
Yeah, I think what stands out most is that if Energy Star is phased out, you, the consumer, you'll just need to become more informed and more proactive. You can still rely on the detailed specifications for products, like those SEER and HSPF ratings for HVAC systems we talked about.
Right, the tech specs.
Exactly. And look for independent third-party product reviews. Sources like Consumer Reports are great for that. Also, remember your utility company. They're often incentivized to help you buy efficient appliances. So just calling them, asking about qualifying products for their incentive programs, that's going to be a good first step.
Talk to the utility directly. Good tip.
Yeah. And there's also the Consortium for Energy Efficiency, or CEE. It's a nonprofit group, mostly utilities and efficiency organizations. They develop their own energy efficiency standards. So utilities might start referencing those CEE tiers if the Energy Star criteria change or disappear.
Okay, CEE. Good to know.
And maybe most importantly, regardless of any labels on appliances, you always have agency, right? You can choose to use products in an energy efficient way.
Like washing clothes in cold water.
Exactly. Washing in cold water, choosing the right size products for your home so you're not cooling or heating empty space, things like that. Small actions still add up.
This deep dive has really shown just how ingrained the Energy Star program is in our economy, in our daily lives, and the pretty significant implications if its future stays uncertain. It really makes you think, doesn't it? How many small decisions, like just picking an appliance, actually connect up to these massive national, even global impacts?
It truly highlights how a seemingly small label can have such enormous financial and environmental consequences. And it underscores the challenge, really, of ensuring information transparency for consumers in what can be a pretty complex market. It's a good reminder that even voluntary programs can become essentially critical infrastructure for the public good.
Well, our mission today was to give you a shortcut, help you get well informed on this really critical topic. So as you consider your next appliance purchase or maybe a home improvement project, maybe ask yourself, how will I make sure my choices line up with long-term energy savings, even if that familiar blue scar isn't there to guide me?